Hello and welcome to Coffee and Bonsai with Tom. Got an exciting episode for you today. Look at this tree. It's just beautiful. It's got a nice trunk. And for a long time now, I've been wanting to take a tree and, imitate or pay an homage to some of the world's tallest trees. But I haven't really had any material that I thought might work for that. And I think that's going to change with this. Yeah, let's get to it. My idea is to style this tree so that it looks like some of the world's tallest trees. So I live in the Pacific Northwest, where we have no shortage of inspiration for just huge trees, especially like out on the Olympic Peninsula. I mean, we've got sequoia and coastal redwood and western red cedar, firs, hemlock, spruce. We got it all. And some absolutely impressive trees. Just Google, I don't know, famous Pacific Northwest trees. You'll see a lot of them in, Canada, Oregon, um, Washington, California. Just amazing trees. And so I was looking around for, okay, what do I want to use as the inspiration for this tree? And I found a few that kind of jumped out at me. And I actually found a pretty good chart that kind of shows some of these. And so let's take a look at that. So here we go. You can see this cool chart. We've got a bunch of trees here. We've got Dave, a human on the left, and all the way on the right, we have a coastal redwood called Hyperion. And so these are some of the world's most famous tall trees. Now, there's a lot of, I don't know, conflict, whatever you want to call it. Like, how do you measure? Is it height? Is it volume of the trunk, etc.? So, they're big trees. They're tall trees. Let's just leave it at that. We don't have to stack them up in precise order. But and this is kind of a nice variety, and I like how they have, we've got Big Ben and we've got the space shuttle in there for height. And the ones that I'm kind of drawn to are sort of in the middle. There's this Douglas fir. This one's in the UK. But there's one in Canada, which I'll show you a picture of here that I really like. And General Sherman. I mean, look at that, very very impressive there, over next to Big Ben, which is a giant sequoia. And then of course we've got Centurion, which is a eucalyptus, a mountain ash, I guess, which is kind of an interesting variety, interesting style in that tree. And then Hyperion, which I guess is a coastal redwood, and in California, which is kind of regarded to be one of the tallest trees. So, let's take a look at my tree and see which one of these trees could serve as inspiration, or, what combination of elements of these trees we might want to use. But before that, let's take a look at a few actual pictures of a couple of my favorites. This is General Sherman here. And this tree is in California. It's a giant sequoia. Um, and it is the largest, not the tallest, but apparently by volume, it's the largest known living single stem tree. So you got to really discern these things. And it's quite an impressive tree. I mean, look at that. And I've got a few more pictures here I'd like to show you. This one is, kind of pulled back a little so you can get a sense of, people around the base there, and this just beautiful trunk, and, you know, sort of a discernible lack of taper. I mean, it definitely tapers, but like, if you see as you get closer to the top of the tree, um, it's hard for the tree to pull water all the way up there. And of course, it's hotter and there's more sun exposure up there. So you tend to not have a healthy looking, top on these trees. They kind of have a different style. And here's a picture with a person for scale in the wintertime. And yeah, just a massive, massive tree with an incredible trunk, and just so impressive to see. I've never seen it in real life, but it is certainly on my bucket list, and maybe this summer. So I absolutely love Douglas fir, and I want to show you this tree. This is actually, I think this is Canada's. I think it's their second largest tree, and it's a Douglas fir. Um, and you can see it's actually, survived a clear cutting, and it's just an impressive impressive tree, and it's kind of one of my favorites. And I think, the reason I like Douglas fir, you don't see it so much in this specimen, but I like how the branches um, grow, right? And they're just beautiful trees. And this to me looks like a great specimen. It's kind of standing out here against the ravages of man and refusing to die. And yeah, I would love to see this tree as well someday. So enough dreaming. Let's have a look at my tree again and see what we think might work here. As I look at this tree, it has a substantial trunk. I mean, it's by far its best feature, absolutely. And it's got a nice color. It has some character. It sort of imparts a strong feeling. It doesn't have a lot of branches, but none of the trees we've looked at are really covered with branches, so that's not necessarily a bad thing. And so I'm tempted to, General Sherman has the strongest trunk. Um, But I sort of like the branches on the Douglas fir, and so let's take a closer look at how these grow. So this picture really illustrates kind of what I was talking about. We have a coastal redwood on the left, so it's not a Douglas fir, but the growing pattern that I see with the branches here is kind of what I was talking about. It's very similar. And then we have a sequoia, General Sherman on the right, which is obviously a much more mature tree, and you can see, sort of similar angles, but much more developed. And so, they're not in consistent ideas, which is what I was thinking. So if we'll go back and look at my tree, and I want to look at it and see if it's even feasible to try to do this, or if we would just be ruining the tree. But sort of what I want to do is have a tree with the trunk of General Sherman on the right and the branches of what I consider more of a Douglas fir style growth on the left, at least initially, and then as the tree evolves, I can, um, develop the branches to be more and more like the General Sherman tree on the right. So that's my idea, and let's take a closer look at the tree and see, you know, if this has a chance of actually working out. So I've been developing this tree for a while. You can check my playlist. I'll put a link to the previous video where we did some drastic pruning, but you can see it's grown a lot, and we've got these big lower branches here, which are kind of straight and not that interesting, but you know, I always say measure twice and cut once, so I kind of want to at least think about the idea, well, what if I use this, what if I cut, I've got a big wound in the back there, so I'm kind of this has got to be the front, but I think that works fine. It's got a nice taper to it and goes straight up, um, which looks good, I think. And we've got a lot of growth, but I could sort of develop this over here and then some branches over here and have more of sort of an informal upright tree. If I didn't want to do the tall tree emulation, I'm just trying to think about all options here and whether I don't want to force a square peg into a round hole. So I'm just thinking about other options that I could do with this tree if I were not, if it weren't suitable for the tall tree idea. So first I'm considering just utilizing these lower branches, and I could grow out this on the right and sort of, bring this down to this kind of profile, and it would sort of be big branch on the right here. I'd probably lose the one on the left, that lower one, and it would be sort of balanced like this with two big main branches. And I think that could work. See, we've got a lot of long growth here, and so in that scenario, I would obviously cut that back and develop it into your typical, um, triangle shape. So yeah, I feel very lucky to have this material, and I want to honor it by doing the right thing. And I think having it be sort of an informal upright would be fine, but I don't think it's really playing to the strengths of this tree. So um, yeah, I mean these. Let's pull in. I printed this out because I'm old school. And as I look at this, I'm sort of seeing, because of the trunk size, a lot of these trees are just probably not good candidates to emulate for this. And I'm kind of leaning towards General Sherman anyway, um, because I think it's kind of cool. But let's take a look. And, if you look at the general shape, like, you know, what is this tree more naturally suited to, right? And like that first tree, it's a cool tree, but very skinny trunk. Like the overall impression is very tall and skinny, and this one is much more solid trunk and foliage about maybe halfway. And of course, I've got all these lower branches, so in any of these scenarios, those have to come off. But maybe combining those two ideas where I use the trunk, and then I think these two on the right are they're not really a style I like. They're very kind of tall, cylindrical foliage, and I think I could certainly do that. Maybe the one on the right where the trunk and foliage is more in scale, Hyperion. But I every time I look at this General Sherman tree, I just fall in love, and I think we have a lot of branch options here where I'd probably have to cut it from about remove the branches from about there down. And I think that could work because they're not particularly attractive anyhow. So probably about, I don't know, I'm not going to say 1/3. Yeah, maybe it's 1/3, 2/3, maybe it's 3/5, something like that. You can always refine that. And you can see the top is kind of rounded. It's not pointed, as I mentioned before, and it happens in a lot of these very tall trees. So we can obviously do that. This tree has very little taper at the top, but I think that works fine in this case. Yeah, so I'm going to go with my gut, and we'll go with the General Sherman emulation. We've got a lot of branches in the back, like I said, probably about this height. I'm just trying to see like what branches I can keep and what I have to take off of this tree. But yeah, I do think that the trunk is so strong in this, and that matches General Sherman. So I probably have to do maybe about there initially, and of course these lower branches will have to come off. Um, and yeah, we're going to go down this path. So let me get my tools out here and we will get to work. So here we go. And as Nigel would say, big cut coming up. Let me take one last look. These lower branches really do have to come off, so I'm just going to use my concave cutter here and get a grip on this baby. And I probably will do a cutting with this because, these nice stumpy, they make great mame. So there you go. First big cut, and I'll just clean this off. I've said many times in this channel, I have great luck just going right smooth to the trunk, and it heals, and you don't even see it in sort of a year to a year and a half's time. Um, and yeah, I wanted a little bit of background on this tree. This tree was given to me actually. Oh, that looks better already. See, it really doesn't distract your eye from that trunk because we want this big fat trunk to come up out of the ground and head for the sky. So I'm taking this one off too. I'm feeling confident now about this decision. And this will be the one to make a fabulous cutting. So look forward to, I'm going to water propagate this and see how it goes, but I think that'll be fine. And let me clean this up. But yeah, I got this tree for free. I bought some very raw material that came bare root from Connie on the Portulacaria Afra Facebook group. She has a landscaping business, I think, in California. I'm going to take this one off the front too, these lower branches. And yeah, so I bought a bunch from her and she just threw this in the box. And yeah, that's where this came from. I'm just going to continue taking these lower branches off. They're really too low. And thinking about the back branch there. And I think I'm going to keep that back branch for now. I mean, it's a little low if I kind of look at my, it's about a third, but I think for General Sherman it was a bit higher than that. But, we don't have to go all the way true emulation in the first shot. We have a lot of other decisions to make, so I'll kind of come back and think about that back branch, what we're going to do with that. And you know, I need to get some stuff growing out the front here, which I think will naturally happen as we prune this back. So I'm going to go around and just get rid of stuff that like that is growing straight up and towards the center of the trunk. I really don't want too much growth on the top of the tree because, you know, like I said, this tree doesn't have a lot of, you know, it's not pointy on the top. But I got a bunch of a cluster of branches here, so I'm going to thin this out. I was letting them grow to really heal this big wound, but I think we have something we can work with now there. So I'm really going around now, and you know, I've got a lot of branches coming out very close together, and you know, I don't want a whirl, so I'm coming in and you know, picking the best branch. I've got one here that's just growing in the crotch straight up, which I don't need, and you know, this is I don't want this branch because I don't want that to be the apex. And I'm still figuring out exactly what the apex will look like, but you know, I kind of want it to be flat. I really don't see it being much taller than it currently is. I want to encourage growth kind of like from this area out and have it be, you know, kind of quite rounded at the top, much like General Sherman. So I'll just thin this out, you know, just pick the best branch and hope we get great growth on there. And you know, these trees, as I say all the time, they grow really heavily on the top, so you really want to cut it back hard. Um, yeah, so I've got a lot of long branches here, and I'm trying to decide what to do with that. I have an idea, so I'm just going to let them go for the moment here. This kind of stubby branch here on the left keeps grabbing my eye. Um, You know, I've got a lot of, it's sort of in the, what I consider the Douglas fir style. I've got a lot of thin branches, which I think I can probably work with. Um, and I'm really thinking about this stubby branch on the left, which kind of looks like an appendage or something. So, you know, it's got growth coming straight up, so I'd have to cut everything off of it. It's also a bar branch to the one on the right, which is actually quite a nice branch. So I am just gonna take it off. I don't, I don't, I'm not crazy about having the first branch be a back branch, but I'll have to consult the General Sherman picture again. But I actually think that's in the same way that that tree has grown. So I think we're kind of getting there. I'm gonna zoom in now and do some simplification on these branches. There's some straight up growth here that is not going to survive. I mean, I'm not going to be able to use it, so I may as well just take it off right now. Just go around the tree and get rid of, anything in that category that I just flat out know I can't use. And I'm trying to imagine now, if these branches come down, you know, how are they going to lay in the tree, and is it going to look good? Is it going to accomplish my goal of wanting sort of a Douglas fir style branching on this tree. And I think it will. As I kind of grow this out and have these branches come down, I think it will be quite pleasing. So I'm looking at just is there anything else that I can clip off here that is growing into the trunk or growing straight up or growing out of a crotch? I want everything to come to 1 to 2, and I think I've pretty much simplified that down. And we're getting ready, I think, to do the next step. And for that, I want to do a little bit of introduction. So hold on to your hats. I'm about to do a first on this channel, and that is we're going to do some wiring. Now, I am a huge fan of clip and grow, and I feel it's almost always the right thing to do in developing your trees. I'm very much in the school of Nigel Saunders on that. But depending on your goals and your timeline, I also think you need to use the right tool and the right approach. And so I'm not anti-wire. I prefer clip and grow, particularly for succulents. And but I think we're going to do an experiment here. In my past bonsai life, I did a ton of wiring, and it really can help in situations like this to speed things along. So we're going to try it. and we'll see how it comes out. And if not, we can always go back to clip and grow. So here we go. First on this channel, some wire. Now, I don't intend on doing too much with this. I'm going to use a very light wire. I just really want to bring the branches down in a Douglas fir style way, right? So it's not gonna take much. And I thought about using guy wire, but these branches are so thin, I don't think that I really need to. So I'm going to start out by just wiring this lower branch. And like I said, I'm not doing your typical wiring that you would do on like a deciduous tree. I'm literally just trying to lower these branches a bit. I'm not going to put any secondary curving into them, at least not in any meaningful way. So, yeah, the goal is just to bring them down at sort of like a, I don't know, 45-ish degree angle. So when you are doing wiring, which I don't recommend for succulents in general, but there are special cases. What I like to do is, you want to use kind of the minimum amount of wire. You don't want to wrap it tightly. You really have to keep an eye on it because these things expand, very quickly. Um, and I like to wire the tree first, just wire everything, and then sort of place the branches because particularly on succulents, like I mean, they'll break pretty easily, so you don't want to be moving them around a lot and making multiple decisions and repositioning the branch. Um, so I found that you're better off just wire everything, and then almost like in clip and grow, where you're sort of creating the overall shape profile that you want, you sort of do that with the branches. I am going to bend this one a little bit just because I want to see how flexible these are and if this wire is going to hold it in position. And it looks pretty good. I think it definitely will. I might want to bring this main branch down and then lift this a bit because it's not quite the angle I want. I needed maybe slightly heavier wire, but we can just use a guy wire for this. Yeah, in the old days we pretty much didn't use clip and grow really at all. We did just spent hours and hours and hours wiring and gnashing your fingers and positioning everything in place. And it is actually quite a lot of fun to do that. As I'm doing a little wiring now, I'm thinking like, I don't know, it's kind of it's as relaxing as pruning or something. I always just my wiring is I want to be respectful to the tree. Like I don't like some of the contortionist stuff that you see out there. I just don't get it. But to each his own. So yeah, I'm just going to bring that down a little bit. I think that's about the angle I want, and so I'll just snip it off. I always like to keep the wire pretty clear. I mean, this is, I guess 1 millimeter, so it's super cheap. You get a ton of it, so I don't worry about wasting it too much because a roll literally lasts forever. So this is the back branch. I'm just going to go ahead and loosely wire this one. Um, Again, sort of like I did the other one, and I think I can pretty easily just by doing the standard wrap where you join two branches, kind of, put these in a position where they look a bit more natural and we just want to grow them on. Yeah, so I think that is reasonably well wired. I'll just go off to the end here. Um, and just snip that off because I know I'm not going to need it any longer than that. I'm not, like I said, I'm not going to apply S curves to the actual branches. I just want to bring them down. Um, And my idea is we'll just kind of get them coming in this direction, and I'll probably choose a few main branches coming off, and then, I will be going back to clip and grow. So I'm looking at this one. It's a little confusing. I think this bit coming straight up, I definitely don't, um, like even with wiring, I can't use this. I'm going to take that off, and I'm actually thinking about this bit that comes straight up. I sort of feel like I need, and maybe I can use it, but I probably can just use two of these three, and I just need to decide, um, which two I want to use. So I think I'll just go ahead and stick with my original plan of um, Wiring it, I mean, I'm probably going to take that one that's topmost off because I'm not sure I can use that. It seems like that would be the most difficult one to get to do what I want it to do. And it's kind of, and it has an interesting curve on it. I kind of like the branch, but like I said, I'll just wire the ones that I think I'm quite likely to use, and you know, I'll continue on and come back and make the final decision on those branches uh, after I've wired the rest. Again, it's my standard philosophy of if you don't know what to do, you're a little stuck, just keep going. And oftentimes that helps you figure out, the decision that you probably should have made. And I think you can see, like, I'm just putting wire on all these. And once we start getting the angles down of these individual branches, it'll be pretty obvious which ones maybe we don't need, which ones we can shorten more, which ones we need to bring down more, um, etc. So hang on, we'll get there before you know it. Yeah, I'm not sure if I mentioned this already, but I think it definitely bears repeating. I'm a big fan of just wiring everything and then doing all the placement, because I've seen too many folks, sort of wiring and placing each branch as they go. And as they go further, then they realize, oh, I have to move it again and then move it again. And you do that 6, 7, 8 times, depending on how many branches you have. And, you really weaken um, the branch. I mean, it's very stressful on a tree to, have it wired and wrapped and bent, and so you really only want to do it to um, a strong tree. And, I think succulents are quite forgiving, so you have a lot more, leeway there. But, in the same way, the branches on these are way more brittle than on a pine or a deciduous or a conifer. So, you really, you kind of want to place them once and kind of get them in there and then just kind of work with it from there, which is honestly the main reason I use clip and grow is, I tried some wiring early on and it cuts in, it breaks branches, you get scarring that then takes 2 years to sort of grow out and hide. And I just didn't find it that effective, like in terms of trying to get taper. If you have this long sort of spaghetti branch going out with branches coming off of it, it's just not looking very convincing. So this big branch, I'm going to bring it way down. So I kind of am leaving a bit of wire on there to sort of come down as a guy wire and pull it down. And now I'm coming back and looking at this branch that's kind of sticking straight up, much like a cowlick or something. Yeah, I continue to waffle on what I should do with that. My instinct is telling me to cut it off, but I don't have a lot of space in there, so I'm just gonna wire it for now and see what I can do with it. And if it turns out that it doesn't work out, then it doesn't work out. But there's nothing lost except a little bit of wire, and it's not that much wire, and it's kind of like brakes on your car. It's just the cost of doing business. So yeah, I think I'll leave that long too because I may want to pull that one down. It doesn't have to be as long as the other one. I can probably hook onto the branch below it. Um, yeah, let's defer that decision a little bit longer. So I've got a couple of potential guy wires I may want to pull down. So this is kind of what I'm going for, to bring these branches down at that angle. Just kind of universally initially, and then we'll kind of go from there. I still need to work on that back branch, but I sort of want to get these three sorted out and figure out which one I'm keeping. So if I were to pull this down, let's see how that might work. So I'm gently pulling it down, and I can just use the trick of wrapping it on a branch below, near the base, because it's not much pressure to hold these things. Like, you don't need much on these succulents. And once it grows, it'll firmly keep that shape. So yeah, I think even when I pulled that branch down, it's almost like a duplicate of what I already have, and I don't really think it adds much. In fact, I think it's kind of distracting. So I'm just going to go ahead and take the upper branch off and go with the other two. Yeah, that's way better. And we'll kind of move these into position a bit more. And I'll also have more branches coming from the top that are going to fill in that space, once this thing starts growing again. Um, so I think that'll work out pretty well. So I'm kind of liking the placement of some of these branches that the thin wire is kind of held in. It has a nice, sweeping down fur feel. And let me try to do something with these back branches. I kind of want to bring them in closer together. It's sort of like a slingshot out the back, and I do want them to also, sort of have this sweeping down. That might be good enough. We'll play with them a bit more, but it's definitely, I think this is looking a lot better than it was. So just a slight amount of movement. I mean, it's not much, kind of really dramatically improves the look. And let's get this back branch in place. See, it's all coming together like I promised it would. And I got to decide how far I want to bring this down. And it's kind of coming right over that wound area, which I think it will probably cover. So I'm just going to hook it in under this and just kind of figure out how low I want it. And I think that's pretty close. I think that's pretty close right there. So I'll just wind it on. Yeah, I think that looks pretty good, um, actually. And let's take a look. And wow, I mean, I think that is really starting to take shape. I mean, it's definitely looking much more like a bonsai than it did, 7 or 8 minutes ago. Look at it from the side. We have a few wounds on the front, but they're pretty small. I think um, they'll heal pretty quickly. And let's take a look at. So you can see here's Sherman, and I think I definitely have some branches that are a bit low. But I think for now we will go with it. I don't have to get the whole way there, and I've got many years of working on this, so I'm not concerned about jumping right to it. And I'm just going to shorten some of these to give it more of the shape I want, make it look a little less shaggy. These are clearly too long, and I do want to encourage it to do some back budding anyway. And we're sort of like, the promise of wiring is you get much closer to instant bonsai, right? So this is all part of kind of what we're going for. Um, and yeah, I am quite pleased with this actually. I mean, I wasn't sure where we were going to end up, but I mean, I am impressed with what we've got so far. So I'll go around and do some fine tuning here, but I think we're getting close to done on this, and it just occurred to me, I think a really good thought for the day is, you know, use the right tool for the right job. I feel like, like myself, I mean, just through my own experience and a lot of experimentation, have largely abandoned wire. But, that's not to say that there aren't some cases where it's extremely useful and effective, which I think that's the case here. I mean, if I had used standard clip and grow techniques, it would have taken me far, far longer to get to the design where we are right now. Um, so yeah, I think the right tool for the right job. I I don't know. I'm going to leave that branch there for now. Like I said, it's going to fan out on both sides, and so we'll get some good coverage on the back as well. But yeah, I think that's pretty much a wrap. I cannot tell you how happy I am with this. I mean, my goal was really to try to emulate General Sherman, and I don't know how close we got. I think I still have some branches that are a bit low, but you know, I think we're going to get there with this tree over time. I need to get some branches kind of coming out the front and just have it fill in. But I mean, look at that trunk, it's quite substantial and powerful looking. And yeah, I think with even another year of refinement, I think we'll get closer and closer to that. And, I think I accomplished the goal of merging those two styles, right? Sort of having a general Sherman sort of strength and power and trunk with branches that are much more along the lines of like a Douglas fir, although they're still kind of sparse. But, I'm very happy with where we're at on this tree, and I'm really looking forward to where it goes in the future. Um, and yeah, I can't. I'm genuinely a little bit shocked with how nice it looks. I think another thing which I haven't talked about much, but this was really a growing pot, and I feel like this tree, such a strong tree like this, I really think it needs a rectangular pot. So I'll be on the lookout for that and try to find something that I think is more suitable to the shape and style of this tree because I think a rectangular pot really, it's I think this is kind of a male tree. It's a strong tree. It needs something that is a little more angular. I mean, usually rounder pots. I mean, it looks sort of okay in this pot, but it's just not right for this tree. And with that, it's pretty much a wrap on this tree. We will do a victory lap. I hope you enjoyed our attempt at imitating a tall tree. Obviously, the name of this tree is going to be General Sherman. And, subscribe to the channel. It'll have its own playlist, and you can keep track of the future development of this tree. And with that, I want to thank you for spending time with me. And I look forward to seeing you all again very, very soon.